quick way. Today, we're going to look at the three foundational cases that are often referred to as the Marshall Trilogy. Dun, 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 dun. So we've talked about these before because I learned from a professor and attorney at law, Mr. Peter DeRico. Look him up. Peter DeRico, as well as Anna von Reitz, have helped to get me to the point of sending my Indian not tax notices. Anna helped me to see the federal system in a much more authoritative light, meaning she helped me to see the authority that American people, let alone Indians, was supposed to take and have over any government system. And this is what I'm not really seeing among American Indians. And it's not really the American Indians' fault. What it is we have Moors among us who are quote unquote tutoring us on the law, but they're looking at the law as an authority when it is the man or woman of the land, the Indian man or woman of the land particularly, that is not even supposed to be under the jurisdiction of the federal system. What you will find, and I think anyone can vouch, Moors in general are taking a subservient or submissive position when it comes to any of these commercial laws, because the federal system is simply, it's just commerce, y'all. There is no law of the land because they're colonizers. Colonizers don't do law of the land because they're here to take over the land, and because they're not birthright men and women, they take it over with commerce. And as we learned in the last few videos, I know I'm long-winded, commerce is how they are pulling Indians. They use commerce to pull everyone, including the Indians not, well, they're pulling in the Indians not tax, but it's really no. Let me say that again. They're not pulling in the Indians not tax. What I'm trying to say is they're depending on semantics. In other words, just because you're an Indian, think of the Commerce Clause, because the Commerce Clause is where they are pulling Indians into commerce. But Indians not taxed, the way the Constitution reads, Indians not taxed are not bound to commerce, right? Because Indians not taxed. What I said in the last video is, I believe it's it holds true. Indians not taxed. What is the difference? What would you say is the difference between Indians not taxed and Indian tribes? I mean, it's real easy, but I just want to help you to see the distinction. What does one specifically speak to versus the other? Well, one is speaking of Indians who are not in tribes, which is the Indians not taxed. These are just random Indians that are in the state. Indian tribes are on reservations, but Indians not taxed are in the states. That's why the state in the Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3, the state is saying they won't count them, you see, because the state sees them standing there and it recognizes that they are Indians, not taxed. So the difference between an Indian not taxed and an Indian tribe is that the Indian tribe is going to be on a reservation. An Indian not taxed is not on a reservation and is not federally recognized because that's the only tribes that this government is working with, the ones that they can dominate. So the only type of tribe that is allowed in this system is a federally recognized tribe because that's how they're pulling you into commerce. In other words, whereas this system should have did commerce with any Indian, federal or not, because this is our land, right? And we all got to survive in this piece if we're not being genocided, right? But what the government said was, we're going to pick and choose who we do commerce with, and those that we choose, we will have domination. What if you're doing commerce with me? Why are you trying to dominate me? Do you have to dominate me to do commerce with me? Okay, well, does what does the United States dominate Russia if it does commerce with Russia? Does the United States dominate China if it's doing commerce with China? So what is this new thing where you're using commerce to completely dominate? All you're supposed to be doing is buying from me. That's all you're supposed to be doing. You don't even have to regulate anything because as we saw, regulation was not even defined. What does that mean? So also Indians not taxed come first. So what I like about the way the Constitution is designed, there's not much to like about it, but what I do like is that we start off Indians not taxed. Indian tribes are secondary. Now, it's almost like if we started off being dominated in commerce, it just seems to be it wouldn't bode as well as how we start off in the Constitution. At first, we're Indians not taxed. So what I was proposing is since that's our first mention in the Constitution, we have, I believe, a right to uh, create tribes among Indians who are not taxed. In other words, we use that phrase to show that we're not in commerce, if you can follow, because we want to be distinct from Indian tribes because really those are only federal tribes. So all I'm saying is it's constitutionally sound for Indians to be in uh, uh, Indian not taxed tribes, because tribes are not Indians not taxed. Indian tribes are not Indians not taxed. Indian tribes are tax exempt. There is a difference. What you want to be is an Indian not taxed. That's our ticket out of here, y'all. I don't want my listeners to think that I am looking to resurrect the Constitution. I want to be very clear that due to the overwhelmingly deceptive processes, the deceptive practices that have been used against Indians, if we were, and we were, in a commercial or sort of trade-based contract with the United States federal government, any one of us who has common sense would know you cannot do business with a cheater. You cannot do business with an entity that has no scruples, no honesty. And really, the repudiation of the Doctrine of Discovery, they shouldn't be here at all. It's not even that we are unable to do business with this entity. This entity is no longer validated by the very entity that created it, that gave it its power, which is the Vatican. We must grab hold of what Pope Francis did. This, along with our own proclamations or declarations that we are known as Indians not taxed. But from there, we are a separate government making our own decisions and owning our land to the point where we can serve eviction notices. Apart from this system, you don't have to do anything that this system prescribes. It has been repudiated. Do peacefully, because we have the footing, we have the legal floor, the legal footing, the legal foundation to do it. We must call it up. I was so happy to see in that Cherokee Nation case, which is one of the cases that you're looking at right now on the screen. I was so happy to see that even the judge, John Marshal, sitting right there, need to go back to Europe, right? Judge over there, because you've been repudiated over here, Mr. Judge. Your uplink is the Pope. He has served you your walking papers. I was so happy to see that even in one of his statements in it's the second case, the Cherokee Nation versus Georgia, I was so happy to see that he even says, basically, we'll try to read it again. He basically says the states are going to go right ahead and treat you and tax you like a citizen unless it is expressed in words. So that is what I'm doing, ladies and gentlemen. I'm expressing in words that my true standing is as an Indian not taxed. And then from there, I make my own laws. I'm not in your jurisdiction. You can't make laws for me. You simply can't. And it's okay. I know that scares a lot of Indians because we're just not used to that level of freedom. Get used to it. I never gravitated toward the narrative which says or suggests that if you don't have law, you're gonna go crazy and lose your mind and do bad. No, no, no. No, 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 no. First of all, you have to look at your history. Who's known to be the first civilized or the civilizers? So it is in your blood to be able to self-govern without giving into chaos. And I want to stress that I had a very religious friends, and we just won't even go there with what religions they were, but it was Abrahamic. I have to say that part. And the impression that I got, this was a non-melanated person, but the impression I got was, I need to have these restrictions because if I don't, it's one of, and I do get that. Know thyself, but at the same time, I don't identify that way. I don't feel like I'm a person that if I don't have strict laws, I'm just going to go ballistic. No, no, I don't see myself that way. I've never lived that way. So why should I think I would be that way? In other words, what we're talking about is just, the first thing that comes to mind is just someone who feels like, oh, if I'm not held down, I'm gonna go like stealing and molesting and no, no, no. Uh, any criminal system is supposed to deal with that, but the idea is this federal system ain't that for us. They don't have jurisdiction. If anything, they will throw your Indian ass in jail over nothing, like they do. So the flip side of, oh, I'm out of control is, oh, my ass is just going to get thrown in jail for not even doing anything. I'd rather take the former, yo. I'll take my chances with the former. So let's get into this. This is a short one. I make everything long, don't I, though? I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Um, and I noticed at times my mic sounds weird. Lately, it used to be that when you use a Bluetooth is when the sound would go out sometimes. I'm using a wired headphones. There's no real reason why my voice should fade out, and I'm not hardly moving. But don't worry, I have another set of headphones just like this one. If this one is starting to mess me up during my videos, we'll just have to replace you. So what we want to look at is just what is this trilogy? What did it do? What did these three cases do? What we know is that according to Peter DeRico, they are based on the doctrine of discovery. So this is why we want to look at them, because they have been repudiated. Now, these are the foundational cases. That means all the ones that follow these cases are basically picking up on his sentiments and the way he judged. John Marshall, they're doing like they're going to repeat what he did because he set the precedent, so to speak, right? So basically, Peter DeRico is telling us that these cases basically allow the federal system to dominate Indian tribes. Tribes, not Indians, not taxed, y'all. We have to make that distinction. Now, the system will dance around it and say it's one and the same. Indians, not taxes, just like Indian tribes. But we have to let them know that no, we know better. Actually, I sending a new letter to the Department of Environmental Protection because like I told you, they're still trying me now. They haven't sent me any, you know, letters of what did you say? You're not gonna pay us no more. You are Indian, not tax, and you are not supposed to be. What? They didn't say that. They just sent another bill. Hey, just let's act. Continue doing business as normal. Just send them another one. And it's meant to intimidate. I'm convinced of that. It's meant to just we don't recognize nonsense. We're just going to keep billing you. Well, what they're going to get is a new mailing, and I'm kind of excited because I reworded the new one, and I think it's just a little more powerful than the last one. We talked about it, and also, I'm going to start letting them know that this is the second notice. In other words, okay, so you're gonna keep acting like I haven't told you. So now we're gonna do the countdown. Okay, so this is the second notice. This is the third. How long are we gonna keep doing this? Because guys, we have to call up and put a no, post-it there because we're going to come back because I want to show you in the Cherokee case where again he says you have to express in words that basically that you're an Indian not taxed because he mentions Indian not taxed and he's saying, well, we have to consider this, but we'll only consider it if it's expressed in word. In other words, we're going to railroad over that too, y'all. We're going to assume that they're Indian tribes or treat them like Indian tribes in commerce. And unfortunately, Cherokee Nation was an Indian tribe, so he shouldn't have even mentioned Indian not tax because technically speaking, he was dealing with a Cherokee Nation, which is a tribe, which is a federally recognized tribe that still gets shat on. That's why I don't know what federally recognized tribes got, except a lot of bossing up on. It's like, really, y'all, what happened? Well, the thing is, a lot of them are not even, what about, well, let's be real, they're not melanated Indians, right? So these federally recognized tribes, most of them are Mongolian, right? And Caucasian, quote unquote Indians, right? So I don't know that it's just a psyop inside a psyop inside a psyop covered by a psyop. But there are some melanated Indians because we've seen them on YouTube. Like I told you about the sister who had a show where she's speaking and she's all in back of her on her walls are all these Mongolians. What the what the It's a shame, y'all. It's a shame. Psyops are right in front of your face. But anyway, let's read because you probably already read this paragraph, right? The Marshall Trilogy. John Marshall was the longest serving Chief Justice in Supreme Court history. Yeah, they liked what his judgments said, and played a significant role in the development of the American legal system and federal Indian law. Now, Peter DeRico says federal Indian law is federal anti Indian law. He's very clear on this. That's the name of his book, by the way. federal anti-Indian law, the legal entrapment of, he said, I think he used the term Native Americans. But that, what he's saying is this man is the foundation of federal anti-Indian law as he sits there looking proud as a peacock. Um, he established that the courts have the power of judicial review. He's making something up. It sounds like to me. Anyway, the authority to strike down laws that violate the U.S. Constitution. Okay. Marshall has been credited with cementing the position of the American judiciary as an independent and influential branch of government. Hmm. The American judiciary as an independent and influential branch of government. The Marshall Court case, I'm sorry, the Marshall Court made several important decisions relating to federalism, shaping the balance of power between the federal government and the states. Among these decisions are the three cases that form the basic framework of federal anti-Indian law in the United States, referred to as the Marshall Trilogy. Anyone ever saw that film Trilogy of Terror? This is worse than that. You all saw what happened to Amelia when she bought that Zuni fetish doll, the Zuni fetish doll. You all saw what happened to her, right? Well, we can't let that happen to us. She got possessed by the demon spirits, but mm-mm, we ain't gonna let this federal anti-Indian law don't apply to us. It applies to federally recognized Indians or federally recognized Indian tribes, I should say, because we are Indians, not taxed. And that is our ticket out of here, along with the repudiation of the doctrine of discovery. Johnson versus McIntosh, 1823. This is the first case. Let's read what this case did against Indians. This case, now I want to warn you, they dress it up and make it look like these cases are doing something good. It's like being caught in a psychotic episode. It's like, why are you trying to make this sound like you did something good? But it's shocking. Let's read. The case primarily, Johnson versus McIntosh, this case primarily related to land issues and the interpretation of the doctrine of discovery. See, these cases are based on the doctrine of discovery, but it has been repudiated. So what happens to these cases, y'all? If you stand up and demand it, the Pope has backed you. The Pope has laid the groundwork. We must hold him to that, or he will assume that you are acquiescing to domination. So, this case primarily related to land issues and the interpretation of the doctrine of discovery. So, right there, yes, I might have to add this to my paperwork because this is tying their cases to the doctrine of discovery. And see, I don't think even within this legal system that they understand that their laws are based on the doctrine. So I have my repudiation if I include this, actually, I am going to include this. Yes, I am. This is a one pager, and I'm going to have to highlight these cases primarily related to land and interpretation of the doctrine. Oh yes, this will be perfect for a second round. If you didn't get it the first time, okay, let me really show you that your cases are based on a doctrine that has been repudiated. I'm sorry. Repudiated. Okay, I'm sorry. I keep stopping. I'm so sorry. This case primarily related to land issues, Johnson versus McIntosh, and the interpretation of the Doctrine of Discovery in the United States. The case involved a man named Thomas Johnson who bought land from the Pianki Shore Indians, and William McIntosh, who later obtained a patent to the same land from the United States federal government. The court was asked to settle the dispute between the two men and sided with McIntosh. So McIntosh got a patent, y'all. From the government to get the land that was given to another man by the Pianki Shore Indians. So they overrode the Pianki Shore Indians. I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead, y'all. I'm so sorry. So the court was asked to settle the dispute between the two men and sided with McIntosh. The court went on to say that the Indians did not own land outright. Y'all, I have to speak. I'm so sorry. My big mouth can't be stopped. I'm sorry. I just want to remind federal Indians who are looking to be 501c3s and federally recognized. This is what you get. Is that being an Indian, or is that being just as dominated by your colonizer as day one? This is some absolute BS, y'all. Absolutely. Oh, gosh, let me finish reading. Oh, my God. Okay. The court went on to say that the Indians did not own land outright. What do you mean? But that they had rights to occupy lands. And only the discovering nation, the U.S., United States, could settle those land rights. Indians could not sell lands to individuals, and states do not have the legal standing to settle Aboriginal land claims. So they are overriding the state. What does that mean, Indians? You are directly under the domination of a British district. The states are somewhat like they can challenge at one point they had more sovereignty than the District of Columbia. This is what Anna taught. This is what I've heard before as well. So what the federal government is doing, if you really look at it, it created a citizenship, a special citizenship in 1868. The federal government is gathering up Indians to be their quote unquote citizens, while the states had state citizenship for all other people. That was for a short time. And then the feds took domination over all, but it started with us, y'all. It started with Indians. We were the first victims of this federal nobility, because that's what it is. That the DC, as we know, is a foreign entity owned by British nobility. So if you are a federal citizen, we decided we're gonna err on federal when we talk about United States citizens. We're gonna err on federal because it makes it a little more clear what you are. You're not tied to the state. You're tied to the District of Columbia. Federal is the District of Columbia. So what they are doing, they're saying to the states, you stay right there. Don't bother these. We got them. And then we were the first to be made under the 14th Amendment, because that's the 14th Amendment citizen. That's where you learn that you cannot question. What do they call it? The national debt, the public debt, same thing. Indians, you got to don't you allow yourself to be steered away from this legal conversation. It is the only one you need to be having when you're dealing with. It was a legal thing that did what it did to you. So if you're too focused on history, like you just want to talk histrionics, but not legality, you're never going to get to where you need to be. And that's what I think I see happening. People are, they're going too deep with history, when we should be having a legal conversation at this point. We discovered that we're the Indians. We have to move forward on that. Stop allowing people to move you away from that narrative, trying to rename us so that we don't ever find the legality, the legal breadcrumbs, the legal trail. If you keep finding out that you're a Victorian or something, it's taking you away from where you need to be, y'all. I hate to say it. I don't care how charismatic the teacher is. They're not they're getting lost in the sauce. And I just have to say it that way. We have to deal with the doctrine of discovery. Hmm. Can we agree upon that at least? So from there, it's a conversation about how that interfaces with Indians, right? Not Victorians, right? So I have to say that, y'all, because there's a lot of narratives out in the Indian country that are trying to. It took us forever to find out we the Indians, and now as quickly as we find that out, we have teachers, quote unquote teachers, I call them agents, but that are trying to get us to not identify as Indians. Okay, we can have that conversation after we deal with us being called Indians and what led to us being treated like we're being treated in this system. After we deal with this, then we can talk about whatever we want to talk about. But we got to get our standing back first. Don't run from it. Unfortunately, we have to deal with it. Unfortunately, the court was asked to settle the dispute between the two men and sided with McIntosh. The court went on to say that Indians did not own land outright. This has been repudiated, y'all. Just saying. But that they had rights to occupy lands, and only the discovering nation, the United States, could settle those land rights. Indians cannot sell lands to individuals, and states do not have legal standing to settle Aboriginal land claims. Now, you got to imagine this. You are more than likely, as a reservation of Indians, you're actually in the state. So, what the federal government is saying is that the closest thing to you, which is the state that you're most likely in as a federal reservation, they can't even say help you. They can't, they don't, like you can't go to the nearest thing to resolve your land issues. You have to jump over the state and go to DC. What if I'm in Georgia? What if I'm in Florida? I can't deal. Florida state can't resolve my issues. They got to stand by, stand down, so Mister Nobility could come and treat me like the the only slave. Could not sell lands to individuals, and states do not have legal standing to settle Aboriginal land claims. There was a case similar to this matter. I'm sorry, similar to this much later. I done put much in later and made matter. There, it's early, y'all. I have not had coffee. I don't know why I'm doing these early morning videos when I can't read. There was a case similar to this much later in Alaska called United States versus Berrigan, 1905. That case involved gold seekers trying to steal land from. Wait a minute. What do you mean purchase and steal? When you purchase something, you ain't stealing it. But you see, this is what I'm talking about, y'all. Remember early on, I said they're gonna make it, they're gonna make good things sound bad and bad things sound good. So you're having a psychotic episode. You're walking through a psychotic episode. This Caucasian Negro was a psychotic episode, yo. That you looking at a psychotic, look at him, looking like Bram Stokes, Dracula and shit, covering up them fangs. But you have been, the Pope done committed an exorcism on your ass. The power of Christ compels you. John Marshal, you've been rebuked. There was look at this, y'all. There was a case similar to this much later in Alaska called United States versus Berrigan, 1905. That case involved gold seekers trying to purchase steel. How do you purchase steel land? Lord have mercy. From the South Catket, these some of these tribes, y'all. Um, I think the Moors be naming some of these tribes, y'all. Purchase steel land from the South Catket Athabascan people who were living near the Salka. Oh, was the Salka is a place. All right, they probably named that too. On the Tanana River, sorry. Judge Wickersham recognized the legal obligation of the federal government to protect native lands and ruled that only the federal government could settle Aboriginal land claims. Thereby, the sale was invalid. Oh, now it's a sale? I thought you said he was trying to steal. Look at this, y'all. I just, you know, this is why this is why I gotta be an Indian, not tax, because their shit is so flimsy that it's it's a crime to not check this. They've been checked, y'all, by Pope Francis. Thank you, Pope Francis. Thank you, Pope Francis. So that's the first scam of flam flim flam. Can you believe that? This is law, y'all. That's why that attorney we talk about frequently, Peter DeRico, he said this is federal anti-Indian, and he's right, yo. It's just perfect what he named it because they call it federal Indian law. He says no, I saw what you did. I'm an attorney. I see it. Federal anti-Indian law, Mr. Marshall. And then they have something called martial law, which I think is so interesting. Seeing how bogus and bull crappy this man's laws are. His judgments are off, right? But he was using the doctrine of discovery. I guess we can't blame it all on him. He said that's the whole point of us being here is to take this land. What sense it make to give these Indians call it, although they're the first thing we saw when we got here, they don't own it, really. Let's go to the next case. Cherokee Nation versus Georgia. In this case, okay, the next one is Worcester. Worcester is iffy. It doesn't seem as bad as these two. Cherokee Nation versus Georgia in 1831. In this case, Cherokee Chief John Ross tried to protect Cherokee lands. Why do I feel like he might be a $5 Indian? John Ross? Hmm. Uh, in this case, Cherokee Chief John Ross tried to protect Cherokee lands, fight off removal, and to keep the laws of Georgia from being imposed on them. Well, we just read that the states don't have any, you know, power, no, authority to, what does he say? The states do not have legal standing to settle. They go using all different words. Aboriginal land claim. Why? Just make it Indian land claim. Stop making all these other words, y'all. In law, that should not be done. It really should not be done, y'all. It cannot be done and be very ethical. Um, so John Ross tried to protect Cherokee lands. This is the chief. He tried to protect Cherokee lands and fight off removal and to keep the laws of Georgia from being imposed on them by asking for an injunction in the United States Supreme Court. He's asking the federal government to help me keep my land from these states. The Cherokees argued that they were a foreign nation and the laws of Georgia did not apply to them. They should have been correct. The court denied the injunction and went on to say that the Cherokees were not a foreign nation, but they were a domestic dependent nation. That term does not even exist in the Constitution. So he's making up crap. I heard it said that Congress is the only thing that's supposed to be making laws. Not, but don't worry, theirs are just as janky. But the point is, it's a judge, man. It's not Congress. This is a dictator. Okay. He's making up stuff, but it's based on the doctrine of discovery that has been repudiated. The court denied the injunction and went on to say that the Cherokees were not a foreign nation. That's what they called you. You up in the Commerce Clause, you doing commerce with foreign nations, the states, and Indian tribes. You lumped us together with the foreign nations. Well, not us, because I can't be part of these fraudulent federally recognized tribes. Oh hell no. I might as well be Kunta Kinte, y'all. Seriously. I mean, I might as well be Kunta Kinte saying my name is Toby. Okay, or no, yeah. Or trying not to say that my name is Toby. Um, you might just make me a Negro, y'all, because this kind of Indian is like a Negro. Worse, worse, because you know the truth and you're still submitting to being a slave. It's worse because now it's going to be said that you agree to this slavery. It's consensual. It's voluntary. The Cherokees were not a foreign nation, but they were a domestic dependent nation. That is some BS, y'all, but let's keep reading, right? Come on, Heru. The relationship between the tribes and the United States was like that. Oh, here we go. Of a ward to a guardian. So you're a ward of the state, even as an Indian. And of course, it is the federal government that is your guardian. Hmm. 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 This case outlined the sovereign nature of tribes as not like states, but not as complete foreign nations either. They're creating something new, y'all. Tribal sovereignty. word, that word don't even belong in this page. Um, was limited by being within the boundaries of the United States. But that tribal sovereignty was inherent sovereignty, which means that it was limited. I'm sorry, which means that it predates the United States. Yes. The responsibility that the federal government has to tribes takes root from this. And the next of the famous Marshall Indian cases is something. So, see, I think they're talking crap. Like the main thing is you, the Cherokee Nation tried to stop Georgia from taking their land, and they asked you, federal government, for an injunction to stop Georgia from doing that, and you denied them the injunction, allowing Georgia to take their land. So, what is all this other extraneous BS you're talking? You know, it just they're saying that your ward, so your guardian can take land from you because you're dependent. Okay, but what am I dependent on? I'm dependent on you to get rid of me, or am I dependent on you to support me? You keep saying I'm domestic dependent, but what am I dependent on? You to genocide me? Because that's what it looks like. So your sovereignty is not like that of states, but not as complete foreign nations either. Tribal sovereignty was limited. That's what we missed by being within the boundaries of the United States. So just because you're in now you could conceivably say the DC is sort of in the boundaries of the United States, right? Do they have limited power? Huh? They're a foreign entity, right? But not but kind of you could say that they domestic dependent because they depended on these states to send them taxes, right? So you're just like the Indian tribes, federal government. You're not quite a state. and you're not quite a foreign nation, you could be called a ward. But because you're owned by quote unquote nobility, you think that you're something special, right? You have what did you call it? Divine right. Well, your divine right was snatched by the Pope. What are you now? Demonic right? Okay, so that's what it was. That sovereignty is limited. Well, their sovereignty certainly is not limited, and they're completely foreign. You know, they don't have land rights, but again, the Doctrine of Discovery took away our land rights. It has been repudiated. So the tribal sovereignty was inherent sovereignty, which means that it predates the United States. So yeah. So then, how do you make these kind of judgments? The responsibility that the federal government has to tribes takes root from this, huh? And the next of the famous Marshall Indian cases. Also, okay, so they're just talking about after this case, the responsibility of the federal government takes root in this case. So all other cases are going to take this kind of attitude. That responsibility is called the doctrine of federal trust responsibility. Now, Peter DeRico would say that's just a way of saying the doctrine of discovery responsibility. The idea was that in exchange for the taking of land from the tribes, the federal government would protect the tribes. This is so bipolar. How are you protecting me when you're taking from me? How's that protect? It's an innately non-protective because if I have something, I protecting means you help me keep that thing. But you're talking out two sides of your forked tongue mouth, saying that you're protecting me when I get the other land that you removed me to. So the responsibility, okay, we read that already. The idea was that in exchange for the taking of land from the tribes, the federal government would protect the tribes in the lands that they ended up with. This is why the man calls it federal anti-Indian law. And compensate them by providing basic necessities such as food, shelter, and human services to the tribes. I'm going to take a pause and read this last case after. Where's my pause? Oh, there. We're back. Let's get back to the Marshall Trilogy. Okay, so in the Cherokee Nation versus Georgia, the federal tribes lose again. They tried to go to the federal government, their lord and master, to stop Georgia from taking their land, and their lord said, "Well, why wouldn't you let Georgia have some land? I will give you some food and send you somewhere else. It won't be as far as the Trail of Tears. Don't worry. We'll drive you there this time. How about that?" because of the doctrine of federal trust responsibility. Where's that in the Constitution? Where is any of this in the Constitution? Well, they're going to say that it's commerce. They're going to say this is how they regulate commerce. When I tell you we should have asked them what they meant by regulating commerce, because we're going to look quickly at what I thought commerce was supposed to be, and we're going to see, does this sound like that to you? Okay. So let's read the last case. The last case is Worcester versus Georgia of 1832. So that last one was 1831, and of course the first one was 1823. The last case of the Marshal Trilogy of Terror involved a missionary, Samuel Worcester, who was preaching on the Cherokee lands, which was prohibited by the laws of Georgia without a state license to do so. So they needed a license to go to Cherokee land. Worcester was imprisoned and filed suit against the state of Georgia, claiming that the state did not have authority to control activity on Cherokee lands. And that sounds true to me. Wouldn't they have to give him a license to operate in Georgia? I mean, I'm just trying to make sense of the BS. Indians are not even, this is just, to an Indian not taxed and an Indian who's not federal, this all sounds Looney Tunes to me. But this is what Indians get used to, and they get used to having a lord and master that they really don't understand, that they are subject to the crown. That's what this is all about, y'all. But the one who put the crown on the nobility head has repudiated. I say it a lot because I'm not sure we understand the sheer power that this Pope has in this legal system. I mean, we just read about it, right? This judge, John Marshal, he formed the foundation. This foundation of what they call federal Indian law, which is almost moronic to me, because federal Indians, that sounds oxymoronic. Indians are not supposed to be federal, but this is the foundation here. And as we saw, in the foundation is the Doctrine of Discovery. We saw that. Let's go up here really quick. Right here. This is why I'm going to actually include this piece of paper we're reading. I'm going to include this in my paperwork because it's tying that people, I'm not certain that these folks understand that they've been shut down and they should not be taxing an Indian not taxed. Now, the way this works is, first I'm showing them that I'm an Indian not taxed in the Constitution. Then I'm showing them that everything you could possibly do to me has been repudiated by the Pope. So if you had a set of laws like this, and I'm telling you that I'm an Indian, and you try to grab some of this stuff, then I'm showing you that this stuff is no longer valid. So I might actually be educating the legal team that they have, because as we read, I think we read, a lot of attorneys don't know this stuff. It's that kind of thing where you just do something and you don't really know why you do it. That's how they taught it, and this is how I was taught to do it. I never questioned it, trying to okay. Yeah. So this is the first case And this case primarily related to land issues and the interpretation of the doctrine of discovery that has been repudiated. So all anti-Indian laws now have been null and voided. Let's get back to this case. The last case of the Marshal Trilogy, start again, involved the missionary Samuel Worcester, who was preaching in the Cherokee lands, which was prohibited by the laws of Georgia without a state license to do so. Worcester was imprisoned and filed suit against the state of Georgia, claiming that the state did not have authority to control activity on Cherokee lands. The court sided with Worcester, finding that the Cherokee Nation is a sovereign nation, a distinct community, occupying its own territory, and within which the laws of Georgia could have no force. This decision, again, established that the federal government, not the states, have authority over Indian affairs, and that the tribes retained inherent sovereignty, the authority to make and enforce their own laws within their lands. Well, their lands as long as the federal government allows it to be their land. So this case is, the point of this case is that the federal government is assuming not only power over your land. See, the first two cases dealt with land. So this one, that sounds like, oh, it looks like the Indians, no, well, the Indians didn't have any say here. Actually, it was just between a missionary and the state of Georgia. So this is not a victory for Indians. This is a victory for the federal government, because now they're showing. Now, remember before they said something about land and that they are the only ones that have the power to what? Settle Aboriginal land claims. So in the initial case, it was about land. And in the second case, it was about land, Cherokee land. Because Chief John Ross tried to protect Cherokee lands and he lost. So the first two cases seem consistent because they're saying, we take care of land stuff. But in this third case, we find that they're dealing with things that don't have to do with land, and they're taking authority over that too. Should have done. Well, no, they wouldn't, because they already said, actually, no. They are really claiming that, because they're saying that the states don't have any jurisdiction. So that leaves the federal court not just to deal with land, but every little thing. So, ladies and gentlemen, these are the three cases. And I feel like for Indians to not have these kind of discussions, you're not paying attention to the very laws that govern you. And so we can talk about every other thing in the book of BS. But this is what's really going to be affecting what type of Indian you are choosing to be. If you're a 501c3, you're dead in the water because you are owned by the federal government. Anything incorporated, you're incorporated into the federal system. So you will be dominated just like these Indians were. And these were what? Federally recognized. So being a federally recognized Indian, being a 501c3, this is the type of deal you get. And even though the doctrine of discovery has been repudiated, you are still dealing with a system that has not budged based on a doctrine of discovery. They have not budged. And the way it works is they won't budge. Now, the doctrine of discovery has been repudiated since 2023. But as we see, the federal government is going to continue business as usual unless you claim that. See, but when you claim that, you got to understand that that takes all the, okay, this is what I believe would happen when federally recognized tribes try to claim that the doctrine of discovery has been repudiated. They're still going to be dominated in all the gray areas. Like, to shut something down, you have to extract from it completely. But if you sort of trying, it's going to always be a tug of war, is what I'm trying to say. So they're going to still try to revert to what they call federal Indian law. But the bottom line is you're not supposed to be. Look, this is the bottom line. The bottom line is even our own Constitution, forget the doctrine of discovery, our own Constitution, well, we're going to forget the doctrine of discovery. What I mean is, the repudiation aside, our Constitution was setting us up to be Indians not taxed, not tax exempt. Indians not taxed is not the same as being tax exempt. So the whole idea of a federally recognized tribe is going against that precedent. You don't want to. I think I said it earlier. You just don't want to deal with a cheat because he's always going to cheat you. And if you give him an inch, it will become a mile. Because what you're showing the government is that you don't fully understand the extent of the repudiation of the doctrine of discovery. Once they see that you don't understand that, and you're just clinging to the federal government because you need a foreign daddy, a foreign stepdaddy, they're going to take that role. In other words, you don't want to give them authority that they're not even supposed to have. So don't give it to them because they're going to abuse that. But you have to have common sense. And I don't know if, I don't know that Indians are really using their common sense. You don't give anything to that which has only set out to genocide you. You don't give them any authority. You must go by what history has showed you of what they're out to do. Because what it's showing is that when you're not looking, or when you are not on your P's and Q's, the mission is to genocide you. You can't want your genocider to have any power over you because you will always be fighting. You'll never have your back. You'll always have to watch your back. I don't. I realize I'm again. I guess I'm a no nonsense person. I see what they have done, and in my soul, I don't trust that they have my best interest. So for us to insist that one day they will, it just doesn't make sense to me. Okay. So now let's look at what commerce, see if we can do this quickly. But let's look at the screenshot because I think this really simplifies it. I believe the question I asked here was what what was commerce between Indians and the states? This is what it used to be, y'all. Native American tribes primarily traded furs with early European settlers and later the United States, exchanging pelts like beaver fur for manufactured goods such as guns, blankets, metal tools, cloth, and cooking utensils, which they could not produce themselves. This was a major form of commerce between Indians and the states throughout the history of colonization in North America. So we just want to leave it there. See, this is what basic commerce is. It's an exchange. It's not dominating. And I really like this very simple example because what the federal government is doing is really, again, they're inflating the term commerce to mean domination. And they're inflating it to mean something about land when it shouldn't. My land is my land. You don't, commerce doesn't, it has nothing to do with you just misappropriating my land. How is that commerce? So again, like I said before, it's more like the federal government is treating Indians like an object in commerce rather than a business partner in commerce. It's dominating Indians. But I just have to remind myself, what's trade or commerce? How did it start between Indians and colonizers? It started this way. Now, maybe later on it might not be beaver fur. Maybe it'll be, I think it would be food. I think it would be because we had the land and we had the farm. I think, in other words, I think Kellogg's owes us a ton of money, y'all. Not just Kellogg, but particularly Kellogg because that's a corn company, and any companies that deal with corn, the Indians should be actually getting some kind of patent fee because corn was literally created in America. So if Indians were on top of their commerce, so called, everything that is made with corn would have some kind of extra. Corn would be like filet mignon. Okay. Because I say that because Indians literally cultivated corn is not natural. It is something that South American Indians, because we originated in South America, I'm convinced of it. Again, we never came from the north. When you see that map and you see all them Algonquins up north, they were chased up there. Okay, they were chased up there because their southern land was the most important thing to colonize it. So important that they took a group of Algonquins and turned them into 5 civilized tribes and the Iroquois. Because the oldest language in the Northeast woodland, I'm talking about North and South, y'all, is Algonquin, not Siouan, not Iroquois, not Cherokee, because Cherokee is Iroquois. not Muskogean. Those are the three major linguistics of the Eastern Woodland area. Florida looked like it had another kind of Muskogean. I got to look that up because we didn't talk about the dark brown part, but I'm convinced we already saw the oldest language in the entire region is Algonquin. What all that means is that all Indians shared the same language, and it makes sense. We're on the same landmass. We're on the same landmass, and writing began in the Americas. So we definitely, even no, I'm not going. I'm just going to keep saying what is the most logical. The oldest language is Algonquin when it comes to the East Woodland area, whether that be north or south. So that means it doesn't mean that Algonquins were here first. It means that all of us were Algonquin. That's what it means. Until some of us got infiltrated with Moorish doctrine. What we're talking about is not blood. We're talking about doctrine that's influencing Indians to say that they have blood that goes back to Mali. Once you mix with the Moors, yes, now you can say you have some lineage in Mali, but the truth is you're still American. It's something being put in your head where you automatically genocide the Indian half of your family because you're so put upon by a Moorish doctrine. They're trying to say that our culture is better than yours, so why don't you just take ours? If you feel that way, then go home. That's what the Moors are basically. I think that's their basic thing. They, it's like they want to appear that they're without them there would be no modern type of societies. You all tribal, and so don't you want to side with the more advanced side of your family? Forget about those. I've upgraded. No, you didn't. You've downgraded me simply by not inspiring pride in my lineage, the other part of my lineage, even if you're mixed with them more. He's still not honoring your side of the family because all you're learning is about his to the point where you're really denying your American Indian blood. And that's what the Moor wants you to do because he wants to claim your land. That's why he does it. Get you to more be associated with how you came from Africa. Meanwhile, you've always been here. So, so that's basic commerce, y'all, because I think we forget because of this federal system over exaggerating and expanding commerce to mean and these are Moors. Moors were all about commerce. So this is what they learned how to do, and then they brought that crap here and did it to us. Their commerce overrides your birthright. That's what Moors do. They override birthrights so that everything becomes commerce. So obviously, they're getting more than the people who are conquered by their, I want to say, effed up notions about commerce. So I think we were going to look at another um, article on commerce, this one right here, but maybe we'll save that for the next because we're going to see, I think, with this article how something as simple. I'm sorry, yeah, yeah, we'll read it together next time because we're going to see how psychedelic it got when compared to the simplicity of what we just read. It was literally you had a product. That's what commerce was originally. One product for another product, or goods and services for goods and services. Not land. Not like can I give your land away. Okay? But we're going to say bye for now. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. Please share as much as possible. Uh, and please like as much as possible. You know, other channels stress that, and I should more. Um, Thank you again. Till next time, be and stay highly favored.